fairy tale starts out once upon a time. A sea story starts out, now this is no fecal matter. In the fall of 1975, I had come back from the East Coast, spending a summer on the Victory Chimes as yawl boatman. I had built a 19-foot Grand Banks dory. I was keeping the dory at a friend's house in Linda Isle in Newport Beach. I had hired in and taken a job at Basin Marine. After working there about 3 months, I was approached by Bob Sloan. He had heard about me through the Waterfront Wireless and wanted to take a look at the dory I had built. After seeing and going for a row in the dory, he invited me up to his boatyard on 18th Street in Costa Mesa. I had heard about this place, and wow, here it was, for real. There were 7 wooden boats here, being rebuilt and built by a bunch of characters and salty dogs. Bob Sloan's schooner was not only being built by a salty dog, it was named after a salty dog. Spike Africa, self-acclaimed president of the Pacific Ocean. My first task was to build a dory. This one had to be 16 feet long so that it would fit between the masts. There was some old archaic machinery that was in the old stables right next to the schooner, a pile of Port Orford cedar that I could build the dory out of, and a bunch of hardwood timbers that were salvaged from shipping cradles. When Bob came back 6 days later from one of his delivery jobs, there was a dory sitting there, and I asked him what color he wanted it painted. He asked me if I would help him finish the schooner. He would pay me $800 a month, which was pretty good. It was $800 a month more than I got when I was helping Dennis Holland with Pilgrim, and I could stay there at the yard so that I wouldn't have to commute from Westminster. Bob then dragged me down to Snug Harbor, one of the favorite waterfront watering holes, so he could boast to his friends about how I had built the dory in a week and I was going to help him finish his schooner. I bought a 16-foot travel trailer from his girlfriend Donna Day, loaded up my Model A with tools and the boats that were cluttering up my parents' front yard, and began doing my imitation as a boat builder. I didn't have a good camera and didn't take any pictures of all the work I did on the interior. I recently visited Spike down in San Diego. It has been 50 years. The work we did in 1976 was still there, virtually unchanged. The reason it was never changed is because it was so well designed in the first place. Delivering boats for a living, Bob had cruised tens of thousands of sea miles on hundreds of different boats. He knew what would work and what wouldn't. Bob designed it and he wanted me to build it, so he had easy access to the engine and all its parts, and so that the interior could be disassembled in case you had to repower the boat or service a part of the boat. Bob used to say, "We are the people that service these boats, and they need to be built so they are serviceable." It's a concept I have kept through my whole career. Because of his experience, he was a very practical person. "We don't need a gimbaling table. You don't want a table swinging around. We'll just make it adjustable." And then he would go off on another delivery and leave me to figure it out. Sometimes he wasn't all that happy with what I'd done. Like the little teak latches I made for the cabinet doors. Well, Bob, I'm trying to get this done and I didn't really have time to go shopping. There's only 2 holes. We can change them to something else down the road. Then he went out and priced door hardware. He really liked those latches after that, and they're still there. They work well. Well, the interior was pretty much done. I had put on the rail caps and the taffrail, and I thought everything was going pretty good. So it was Friday evening, and Sloan invited me down to Snug Harbor for a drink. This was really great. This time, Snug Harbor wasn't just full of Bob Sloan's friends. It was full of newly made friends of mine. That was one of the great things, working with Bob. All the great people he knew. So we're sitting there at the bar, and Bob turns to me and says, "Wayne, I think we're going to need to take a break for a while." I said, "Well, that's okay. I have plenty of job offers." And well, like Dennis Holland, I guess these backyard boat building projects never really hit the water and go anywhere. Bob slammed his drink down, glared at me, stormed out of the Snug, got in his El Camino, and peeled rubber out of there. Everyone in the Snug was looking at me. "What did you say to Bob?" I paid for our drinks and walked the 2 miles back to the boatyard. Sunday morning, I was packing my tools up when Sloan came around the corner and said, "Where do you think you're going?" "Well, there's this guy that wants me to put a flybridge on his powerboat." "You're not going anywhere. We're going to finish this boat." This is when I got to know the real Bob Sloan. He put his boatyard in hock, borrowed money from his ex-wife and many other friends, and assembled a small army of friends that made their living doing boat repair and maintenance in the Newport Beach area. Ed Wall did the wiring and electrical. Tim Plage did the painting and finishing. Harding Edkins did the machine and metal work. I was now part of a fraternity that would last me the rest of my life. I had never met anyone that was so clever, resourceful, and tireless. His friends told me, "If you think this is something, you ought to see Bob when one of the boats he's delivering is taking on water and the weather's bad." I had learned how to worm, parcel, and serve in the Sea Scouts, working on the Argus and the Star of India. I was able to help with the rigging work and the spar building. We all worked long days, 7 days a week. The boatyard barbecues, the storytelling and gatherings made it all a lot of fun. In about 4 months, Spike was ready to be launched. This would be the launching of all times for Newport Beach. Spike was first launched on Blackie's Ways table by driving the boat mover's trailer, boat and all, onto the Ways table and then launching it. Then we motored Spike over to Lido Shipyard, where we could put the spars in her and make her into a schooner. Then we took her back over to Blackie's and hauled out on the Ways table again for the official launching party. We then dressed ship and put the dory I had built over the side onto the Ways table. To my amazement, they filled it up over the thwarts with Mai Tais, gallons and gallons of rum and pineapple juice, complete with pineapple slices and lime slices floating around, and then little umbrellas stuck in the rowlocks. Spike Africa himself was there and was one of the first to start bailing the dory. Of course, there were all the usual speeches and rituals associated with the launching, but before Spike went in the water, that dory was bailed dry. After the launching, way too many people piled onto Spike, and we went for a harbor cruise. We then ended up at Woody's Wharf for more drinking and celebration. The next few weeks were spent doing sea trials and shakedown cruises, finishing up little projects, and getting her ready to go to Master Mariners in San Francisco. We had a very smooth trip up to San Francisco. We sailed under the Golden Gate Bridge, under sunny skies, doing about 11 knots. Bob Sloan turned to me and said, "Take a good look at this, kid. You'll never see this again." The Sausalito waterfront was a magic place back then. and it was full of a host of characters. Young sailors and boat builders, busy working on schooners that were owned by rock stars. Harold Summers, a tugboat captain for Crowley on the bay, would be our tactician during the race. He and his family were living on and restoring the schooner Wanderbird. We had no problems getting crew for the regatta. Spike Africa's son, Kid Africa, Ross and Webb Summers, Billy Martinelli, Peter Christensen. We all had so much fun in the regatta, I don't really remember how we did. After the regatta, we sailed Spike back down the coast to Newport Beach. We needed to get her ready for the 1977 Transpac race. We were going in the Honolulu race as escort, and Bob had chartered the boat to several youth, people who wanted their sons to have a sailing experience on Spike Africa with Bob Sloan. We were also carrying the cruising gear for many of the racing boats. Bob never did have a solid business plan for Spike. Acquiring funds to keep the schooner going was the mother of invention. The schooner would go on to be used in many film productions. Bob used it to help in his delivery business, go on to become a Coast Guard inspected vessel, and be used in many different excursion ventures. After sailing Spike back from Hawaii, I leased Sloan's boatyard. While I was working on Spike, I met a Scotsman who was working on the Rose of Sharon, Alistair McIntosh. He and I started a business together, the Woodwankers. Yes, Bob Sloan had not only corrupted me into being a boat builder, he had created another character. Bob Sloan and I stayed good friends and shipmates over the years. One of the last projects I did on the boat was to build a new ship's boat that replaced the dory I had built. Bob, as usual, was unhappy with my work. I just wanted a ship's boat. This is too nice to use. I feel I have spent my entire career preserving our maritime heritage and helping people live their dream. And I've made a lot of mistakes. But I've always worked hard and done my best, and tried to instill this passion into the young people. With the Maritime Preservation Trust, we are providing an avenue for the young people so that they can have the same opportunities and experiences that we had. I am forever grateful for all the people that I worked for and with, for their guidance and coaching. I never imagined that my life would be this great. The things we've done, the fun we've had, and the good times we've shared. I am incredibly fortunate to have had these opportunities. And it all started with the Spike Africa.